Picture a king, alone, bent over a slab of wet clay. Outside his window, the harbor is burning, and with a shaking hand, he is scratching a message into the clay, a desperate letter to an ally across the sea. "The enemy's ships have come," he writes. "They have set fire to my towns, and I have no one left to send against them. My army is far away in the land of the Hittites. My warships are off on a distant coast. The country is abandoned to itself." And then the letter simply stops. To this day, we do not even know if it was ever sent. The king's name was Hammurapi. His city was Ugarit, one of the richest ports in the ancient world. Within a few short years, it would be ash. And it would stay ash, abandoned, silent, for the rest of recorded history. But here is the strange part. Ugarit did not die alone. All around the eastern Mediterranean, at almost exactly the same moment, the greatest civilizations on Earth were dying together. Cities burned, whole empires vanished, entire peoples forgot how to write. It was the first time in history that humanity built a connected world. And how that world died all at once is still the greatest murder mystery we have. To understand the crime, you first have to meet the victim. Around the year 1200 BCE, the Eastern Mediterranean was something the world had never seen before. It was the first international system. Egypt, the Hittite Empire in the highlands of Anatolia, the Greeks of Mycenae, the wealthy trading ports of the Syrian coast, the copper island of Cyprus, and beyond them, Babylon. A dozen great kingdoms all bound together. Their kings wrote to one another, and in those letters they called each other brother. They traded gifts of gold and silver and ivory. They married into one another's families. Together, they ran a single humming economy that stretched across seas and deserts. And all of it rested on one magic metal, bronze. Bronze made the swords and the armor, the plows and the tools. It was the age's steel. But bronze hides a secret weakness, because bronze is not one metal. It is a recipe, mostly copper, mixed with about 1 part in 10 of a second, far rarer metal called tin. And here is the catch this entire story turns upon. There was almost no tin anywhere near these kingdoms. It had to be dug from mountains thousands of miles away and carried hand to hand across the whole of the known world. The richest civilization on Earth was built on a metal that no single kingdom could make on its own. And we are not guessing about this web of trade. We can actually see it, because one strand of it sank and waited 3,000 years for us to find it. Off the southern coast of what is now Turkey, divers found a single sunken merchant ship. It went down around the year 1300 BCE, and it is one of the greatest time capsules ever discovered. Consider what was inside that one hull. 10 tons of copper stacked in ingots shaped like ox hides. A full ton of tin, the two metals of bronze, riding together in the exact proportions to make it. And packed all around them, a cargo drawn from at least 7 different cultures. ebony from Africa, amber from the far-off Baltic, ivory, glass, jewelry, and tools. One small ship carrying a cross-section of an entire civilization's supply chain across the open water. That is the world we are talking about. So connected that a single wreck holds the goods of 7 peoples. So dependent that a warrior's bronze sword began as tin in a mountain a continent away. The historian Eric Klein put it best. Tin, he said, was the oil of the Bronze Age. And a world that runs on something it must import from far away through many hands has a hidden fault line running straight through its heart. Now, the crime scene. Within about 50 years, that entire shining world came apart. In Greece, the great palaces of Mycenae and its sister cities burned to their foundations. The Greeks had a form of writing which we call Linear B, and after the palaces fell, it was simply lost. For centuries afterward, no Greek could read or write at all. Far to the east, the Hittite Empire, one of the true superpowers of the age, evaporated. Its mighty capital was abandoned and never rebuilt as a capital again. Its last king walked straight off the page of history, and no one knows where he went. And Ugarit, the city of our burning letter, was destroyed so completely that no one ever moved back. A darkness fell across the whole region, so deep and so long that we simply call it a dark age. Trade routes went quiet, cities emptied out. By some estimates, the vast majority of the small towns in southern Greece were abandoned. People forgot the skills of their grandparents. Now, historians have been trying to solve this for more than 150 years. And I'll be honest with you from the start, they still do not agree. There is no single villain we can safely convict. There is only a lineup of suspects. So let us meet them one at a time. Suspect number 1 is the most famous of all, mysterious raiders who came out of the sea. We know them mostly from Egypt, which wrote them down. Around the year 1207 BCE, a pharaoh named Merneptah records beating back a wave of attackers from the sea. A generation later, a pharaoh named Ramesses III fights them again in a great battle at the mouth of the Nile. He carved the whole story onto the walls of his temple at a place called Medinet Habu, and the year he dated it, 1177 BCE, has become a kind of symbol for the entire collapse. Historians use it the way we say the fall of Rome, a memorable marker, not the literal day the world ended. For a long time, these raiders were the answer. But look closer at those Egyptian carvings, and the story changes. Because the raiders did not come alone. They came with their women, with their children, with ox carts piled high with everything they owned. That does not look like a war party. That looks like an entire people on the move. Refugees fleeing something behind them. And there is one more twist. The name Sea Peoples is not ancient at all. It was invented by a French scholar in the 1850s. So, were these people the killers, or were they running from the same disaster that was killing everyone else? To find what they were running from, follow the second suspect. And unlike the raiders, this one leaves fingerprints, not in stone, in mud and in wood. Scientists drilling deep into the beds of ancient lakes, the Sea of Galilee, a salt lake on Cyprus, pulled up cores of mud layered with ancient pollen. And that pollen tells the story of a land drying out. A long, punishing drought settled over the eastern Mediterranean at this very moment. Researchers call it the 3.2 kiloyear event. And then came the sharpest evidence of all. Near the ruins of an ancient city called Gordion, there stood old juniper trees that lived through it. A tree records the weather in its rings, one for every year, wide in the wet years, thin in the dry. And in the rings of those trees, scientists read 3 brutal, unbroken years of drought around 1198 to 1196 BCE, right as the Hittite Empire was dying. The Hittites were a grain empire, feeding a great many people. And in their very last letters, we find them begging their neighbors to send ships of grain quickly before the people starve. Starve the breadbasket of an empire, and its people are left with only 2 choices: march and take someone else's food, or die where they stand. 2 more suspects wait in the lineup, and they arrive from opposite directions, one from below, one from within. From below, the earth itself. This whole region sits on a web of restless fault lines, and some geologists argue that right around this time, it was struck by what they call an earthquake storm. Not one quake, but a whole chain of them marching along the faults across a single lifetime, toppling city walls from Troy to Mycenae, one after another. But I have to be fair to you, this suspect is hotly disputed, because it is terribly hard to tell in a ruin 3,000 years old whether a wall fell to an earthquake, to an enemy, or to the slow weight of time. And then, from within, came the last suspect of all. These were top-heavy kingdoms. A single palace sat at the center of each one, hoarding the grain, controlling the trade, taxing the people, writing every transaction down. It was wonderfully efficient, as long as the times were good. But piled drought on famine and raiders at the gate, and the people at the bottom have every reason to rise up against the palace above them. And when the palace burns, so do its records. That is how an entire people can forget how to write. So, who did it? The raiders, the drought, the earthquakes, the angry crowds at the palace gate? Here is what most historians now believe, and it is the most unsettling answer of all. It was all of them at once. Picture it as a line of falling dominoes. The drought withers the crops. The hunger drives people from their homes onto the sea and the roads as raiders and refugees. The raiders cut the trade routes. An earthquake throws down a weakened wall. A starving city rises against its king. And here is the crucial part, the part that gives this ancient story its strangely modern shape. Because every kingdom depended on every other kingdom, no single one of them could fall alone. When one domino went down, it pulled on the very thread that tied it to the next. The collapse of one market starved a palace 200 miles away. The web of connection that had made them rich became the road along which the ruin traveled, city to city, faster than anyone could stop it. They did not fall in spite of being connected. They fell because they were connected. And one honest footnote, because good history demands it. Some scholars today argue the collapse was slower and patchier than the dramatic legend suggests, that the tin, in fact, never quite stopped flowing. The mystery is not fully solved, and that is exactly what makes it the greatest one we have. So, what does it leave us, this 3,000-year-old mystery? A warning carved in ash. The Bronze Age world did not simply bounce back. It took centuries to relight. Greece forgot how to write and would not write again for some 400 years. The Hittites faded into a rumor, a name in somebody else's story. And only Egypt limped on, battered, poorer, and smaller, the lone survivor of a world that no longer existed. But the lesson outlived the ruins. The first people ever to build a connected global economy were also the very first to discover its hidden price. That a system woven too tightly, too dependent on distant threads, can fall not despite its connections, but because of them. It is a truth first learned in the ashes of the Bronze Age, and perhaps one worth remembering 3,000 years on in a world wired more tightly than theirs ever was. But history does not end in the dark. Out of that long silence, one small seafaring people would sail from a handful of tiny ports and hand the entire world its alphabet. Next time, the Phoenicians. If you want to understand how the world truly works, and how, in so many ways, it always has, stay with us and subscribe. The Codex closes until the next story is written.